What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. Today we have a 2007 Acura TSX that we're going to be adding some aftermarket subs. So we have the factory radio, as you can see, navigation radio, and then here are the subs we're going to be adding. So this is customer supplied equipment. Obviously it's not brand new. We have a Class D 1200 watt Jensen monoblock. That's not true. It's probably 400 watts, 300 watts. And then we have some unknown subs. They say dual, but then there are Pioneers in here. So we just need to do some testing, verify everything's going to work correctly. If you're doing an installation on your Acura and you have used equipment or stuff that you're not sure how it goes together, you're going to really want to break it down and verify that your amplifier can take the 1 ohm, the 2 ohm, or the 4 ohm load that you're going to use, and that your subwoofers can create the proper load for your amp, etc. The subs aren't going to be choked in the box. There's a lot of stuff that goes into the design of this, so I recommend just buying off-the-shelf stuff if you don't know what you're doing. And if you have used stuff or you're putting together used stuff, you might want to check it out, because it'd be really unfortunate for you to find a sub box somewhere, put some subs in it, and then both your subs blow, and you're like, what the hell did I do wrong? And the whole time you were choking them because they didn't have airspace or something else. So we're going to go through the disassembly, running the power wire, where we're going to grab the signal, the remote from, all that good stuff. So make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and we're going to get started. I reviewed the components that were given to us. So these are our 4 ohm woofers. They handle up to 300 watts each, which is going to be a 2 ohm load. So they're going to pair all right. Obviously, use equipment, you want to verify everything's going to work correctly. I'm going to grab the signal out of the rear speakers. So I'm going to disconnect the factory connector, tap them, and grab the signal from there. I'll show you that. Then I also already started some of this assembly. So to remove the seat, you're just going to pull up, and then here is kind of the pathway we've opened up so that we can run that power and ground. We're going to be using 4-gauge wire. 8-gauge wire, because this amp isn't going to exceed 600 watts. Along with our sub, our amp, we have our LOC line out converter for grabbing the signal off the rear speakers, and then an 8-gauge power kit. So we're going to make a nice little amp rack. We're going to install this in the back, probably right here in this corner, and then we'll go from there. All right, guys, one of the first things you got to figure out is where to run your power wire for your TSX. And we're going to be drilling a new hole. So on the TSX, it's pretty simple. You're just gonna, this is like loose. You're just gonna pop this panel that goes here down, and then it actually opens up a nice location for you right here. So if you want to pull that off, you could drill your hole right where my finger is, right next to the main boot. There's nothing on the other side. I'm just gonna verify that, and we'll be drilling our hole there. The other thing we need to worry about, along with where we're going to run our power wire, is where we're going to get our remote turn on, or in this case, the power for our line out converter. So we actually have our fuse box right here, along with a fuse tap. So we're going to determine which fuse is turning on and off with the accessory of the vehicle, and use our fuse tap to run power wire straight back to the line out converter. All right, guys, so we broke out our multimeter, and we checked which fuse we're going to tap. So it's this fuse right here in the top right corner. It says ACC. So let me see if I can get better light. So it's this fuse right here, which results to be the fuse where the fuse tap is now, which is right in the corner, out of the way of everything. It's labeled ACC. That turns on and off with the car. So that's going to be our remote source. And then, as you can see, we drilled our hole for our 8-gauge power wire. It's going to go right through there, and then there's nothing on the other side. All right, guys, so I got our power wire ready along with our fuse mount. So our fuse is going to mount right here to this. We're going to use a bolt to secure it down. So our fuse will mount like so, bolted down to this, and then to the battery. And then our battery cable, you could see we put some protective covering on it, and then we're just going to route that underneath the air intake and then into the cabin. So I'm going to get that done, and then I'll show you guys the next step. Our fuse holder, our fuse, this is a 60 amp fuse going into the engine bay. I showed you where you can drill to put the wire. Then we took all this paneling off all the way to the back, took this panel off, this off, and then ran our wire all the way to back here. Here's our amp now. So I showed you where I showed you where to get the remote wire, that fuse AC in that top right corner, how to run the power wire. The ground wire, I didn't get to show you, but you just want to pick a place. There's a hole back there that you can actually use, but you just want to pick a place where you're going to securely mount. So you'll use a screw and a bolt to really mount that ground solidly. And then for your signal, for your audio signal, let me get a light. All right, so for your audio signal, we invested in some OEM Honda speaker connectors, so we were able to make these T harnesses, but I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see here's the plug that's going to the speaker like factory. We tap these wires with a different plug, so I'll show you on the other end. So here you can see the plug, but back here you see where the factory plug is. So this kind of little T harness let us run wiring real simple for our line out converter. Then our line out converter had to get grounded. It needed that ACC that we ran from the fuse box, and then the speaker connections. I'll do a little separate video on the line out converter, how to hook it up, but those are the general things. Once you have the signal, the power, and then when to turn on, you're good for your amp. Now the rest is really up to you, what you want to figure out. The last thing I have to do is just throw the subs in and wire them up. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll give you a little demo. Their connection is back here. Oh man, these are cut, because these are aftermarket speakers. Someone cut this. You don't have to do this, man. So this isn't the same TSX that we did the subs on. I wanted to show you guys the difference. But here you have a brown and red wire. Red is going to be positive, brown is going to be negative. On the other side you have a pink and blue yellow. Pink is going to be positive, and then blue yellow is going to be negative. You don't have to cut these. They sell the Honda speaker harness, we sell it. We also have the OEM one, so you can make yourself a nice little T harness. All right guys, so I'm going to talk to you about hooking up the line out converter. So to hook up to your line out converter, you can either use a passive one or an active one. The difference is a passive one does not take constant power. It only takes that speaker signal, and then you need to ground the speaker signal to eliminate any hiss or any noise. On an active one, it takes constant power, and you have to ground it to let it function the way it wants to. So what this one does is it listens on the speaker signal, and it'll generate a remote turn on when there's power and a speaker's playing. So we use it to help us eliminate any pops. So sometimes when you just go straight, you hook up your remote wire straight to that fuse tap, you can get a pop depending on the amp, because it's turning on before it has signal, etc. So you get into a turn on pop issue, and you want to eliminate that. So that's why we use the active one. But you can use a passive one, and what you're going to do is on your rear speakers, you're going to hook up the colors as I said. The rear right speaker is brown and red. Red is positive. So you would hook up some wire to that. Normally it's green. And then to the brown wire, you hook up green, black. This wire isn't going to come with your line out converter. You need extra wire. You could just use any standard speaker wire. Then on the left hand side, you're going to wire tap the solid wire to what's back to pink, and then blue yellow is going to be negative. So once you have that extra wire ran from the speaker, you're going to wire tap that speaker line. You'll run that to your line out converter, and on your line out converter, it doesn't matter what color speaker wire it is. So in our case it's green and purple, but in your case you might just have standard speaker wire. So your left is going to be whites. So you're going to go purple black to white black, and solid purple is solid white. Or if you're using red and black, or whatever speaker color yours is, this is the left side, this is negative, this is positive, and then the right side are your two grays. So one is negative and the other one's positive, and you'll see the same configuration. One has a stripe for negative, one is solid color for positive. So this is your right channel. So those are your audio inputs. Then this one takes constant power or ACC power, and that's wire that comes with your amp kit gets hooked up here, and this wire runs to the fuse tap that I showed you earlier. The fuse tap you put in the car, the blue wire that comes with your amp kit gets hooked up to this, and then you would run this wire either to your amplifier if you're using a passive line out converter, or if you're using an active one like this blue wire would go to yellow wire to give it always power, and then this blue wire would go to your amp. So think of this as kind of remote in or power in, and this would be remote out. So again, fuse tap to the blue wire that came with your amp kit, blue wire to the yellow wire of the line out converter. Then you're going to do both your blacks. I'm sorry, this only has your black, only one black. You're going to do your black to ground, so you might need to make this longer and ground it, so you got to attach it to metal. And then the blue wire is going to go to your amp. If this is too complicated, you can just use the passive one. The passive one hooks up the same way. You have your pair, your right pair, your left pair, sorry, which is the whites, and then your ground. These two brown wires need to go to ground. If you don't ground these don't touch metal. Since you're doing a sub, it won't be that big a deal, but if you're doing voice, then it'll give you some hiss or some feedback, so you want to make sure you ground these. Now that's the whole reason you're hooking up this line out converter, is so you can have a signal, low level signal, RCA signal, gets hooked up to here, and then your RCAs run to your amplifier. So this is the input signal of your amplifier. So you would hook that up from here to there, and then these have adjustments for the level. I don't suggest you touch them. Usually we don't touch these unless we're having some kind of gain problem clipping. Just leave them, just hook the wires up as is. If you're using active line out converter, LC2I or something like that, the reason we use these is to make sure we eliminate any pop when the amp turns on, but you can always use that. And here's the diagram, if I didn't explain it clearly, of the wires. And again, fuse tap, this is going to be your remote turn on. You're going to run it either to your amp, or if you're doing an active line out converter, that'll be the power for the line out converter, and then the blue wire would go to your amp. If you're doing a passive one, then the blue wire just goes straight to the amp, and this is where you generate your audio signal. You're going to need extra wire to run from the speakers, the rear speakers, to your line out converter. You can also hook up the line out converter behind the radio. It's just a lot more involved, so tapping the rear speakers is kind of what makes the most sense. But this is how you would hook up a line out converter. I didn't get to cover it in the TSX, so I'm showing it to you now on the bench. And here are the parts if you're looking for them. Alright guys, so here it is, the finished product. Here are our two subs. Fit real nicely back in the TSX, in the back of the TSX. See, it's like real tight fit. And then here's our amp. This Jensen is Bluetooth controlled with an app, so he can go in and change the gains and all those settings through the app. As you can see, everything's real clean. We'll throw everything back in the trunk. Looks like we were never here. And then let me show you the front. So here's our power wire all done. It runs underneath the air intake and then through the firewall in that corner, and then our fuse is mounted where it's supposed to be, and then we have a short power run to the battery. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. So we put subs in the TSX. I showed you where to grab the power wire, how to run it through to from the battery to the trunk, how to grab the signal, and where to get your remote or ignition switch power from. And then I'm also gonna throw in here just how to hook up a line converter for all those that are confused, and then how to wire tap those rear speakers in case you need it. But I just want to give you a quick demo of what the car sounds like. Make sure you like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more accurate content. You know we got it coming.